She sat quietly in seat 1F, a window seat that offered nothing more than the view of clouds stretching endlessly beyond the wing. To anyone glancing her way, she was just another traveler, calm, composed, perhaps even forgettable, in the flow of passengers settling into their places. But what no one on that flight knew was that behind her stillness lay a past sealed behind layers of classified operations and unspoken history. Her name on the boarding pass meant little, but her call sign, once whispered through encrypted comms and combat channels, carried weight enough to change the air itself. That's the essence of hidden identity, the truth that some of the most extraordinary lives hide in plain sight, blending into the ordinary until something forces their past to resurface. Hidden identity stories have a unique kind of magnetism because they speak to the duality inside all of us. The part that wants to move on, and the part that can never truly forget. For her, 12F was supposed to be just a seat on a civilian flight, a symbol of normalcy after years of controlled chaos. She had buried her call sign deep within herself, away from the world of radar screens, dogfights, and silent missions that demanded everything from her. Yet the universe has a way of pulling the past back into focus at the most unexpected moments. And when the F-22 pilots outside recognized that call sign, all the masks fell away in an instant. The hidden identity she'd guarded for so long was suddenly visible again, glowing like a flare in the dark. What makes this moment powerful isn't just the revelation. It's the quiet before it. The beauty of her disguise lies in how perfectly mundane she appeared. Hidden strength is often unassuming. True legends rarely announce themselves. While other passengers scrolled through their phones or adjusted their seatbelts, she carried within her a world of experience. Split-second decisions made at supersonic speeds, lives saved by intuition, and missions completed under silence. That contrast between the visible and invisible self is what gives the story its pulse. It's not about a superhero unveiling her powers. It's about a human being confronting the echo of who she once was. The key to her hidden identity lies in choice. She chose anonymity, chose to walk away from the noise of jet engines and the constant hum of radio chatter. But identity, especially one forged in fire and flight, doesn't vanish. It waits. The moment her call sign was heard again, it wasn't just the pilots who recognized her. It was as if her old self did too. That identity had never truly died. It had only been dormant, wrapped beneath layers of silence and time. Her secret didn't just make her mysterious, it made her powerful in a way that no rank or medal could. Hidden identity in this context becomes a mirror for something universal, the idea that our past selves, no matter how deeply buried, continue to define us. In her calm, ordinary seat, she embodied that paradox. The hero pretending to be invisible, the legend disguised as a stranger. The revelation of her call sign didn't just expose who she was, it reignited everything she had tried to put away. And in that instant, as the pilots snapped to attention, the passenger in 12F was no longer just a traveler. She was history awakening in real time, proof that even in anonymity, greatness can never truly stay hidden. A call sign is more than a label. It's a living echo of everything a pilot has ever done, survived, or become. It's not chosen, it's earned, carved out of moments where instinct meets danger and where identity fuses with legacy. When her call sign was spoken, it wasn't just a word. It was a story, a symbol that carried the weight of everything she once stood for in the skies. For those who knew it, it was more than recognition, it was reverence. To the F-22 pilots, that call sign represented someone who had shaped the standards they now lived by, someone whose legend existed in whispered debriefs and training room tales. The moment they heard it, they didn't see a passenger anymore. They saw the ghost of the skies, the woman who had written part of their history in contrails and courage. In the world of aviation and combat, a call sign is sacred. It's the bridge between the man or woman and the myth. It carries a pilot's reputation, their victories, and sometimes their scars. Hers was no exception. It was forged in battle, sealed in loyalty, and remembered long after she disappeared from active service. For her, hearing it again was like an electric shock. A sudden reminder that the life she thought she had left behind was still alive in the voices of others. That name had been her armor, her identity when fear had no room to exist. It had carried her through blacked-out missions, through the roar of engines, through the terrifying silence of radio failures at high altitude. Now, here it was again, spoken not through encrypted channels, but through awe and respect. To those who never lived that life, a call sign might seem like a code or a nickname, but to the pilots who uttered it, it was a salute. It represented discipline, sacrifice, and mastery of a craft that few ever truly understood. It wasn't about fame or acknowledgement. It was about legacy. The recognition from the F-22 pilots wasn't casual. It was instinctive, almost military muscle memory. The way they snapped to attention showed that this wasn't an encounter between strangers. It was an encounter with history. Their reaction said everything her quiet demeanor did not, that her name, once spoken over combat frequencies, still commanded skies. For her, that moment brought conflicting emotions. Pride, yes, but also pain. A call sign remembered so vividly meant her past was still alive somewhere, still rippling through the ranks of those who came after her. It was proof that even when she left, she hadn't truly disappeared. Every pilot she had once mentored, every mission she had completed, every maneuver she had pioneered, they were all carried forward under that single, powerful call sign. It was no longer just hers, it belonged to every pilot who had ever learned from her legacy. When her call sign was recognized, it wasn't merely nostalgia. It was a reawakening of authority and respect that transcended uniforms or rank. It proved that in the military world, names fade but call signs endure. They become immortalized in stories, etched into hangar walls, and passed down like legend. And as those F-22 pilots saluted her presence, it wasn't just acknowledgement of who she was. It was acknowledgement of what she had built, what she had endured, and what she had left behind in the skies. When the F-22 pilots snapped to attention, it was more than a gesture of discipline. It was a shift in power that transformed the atmosphere instantly. A few seconds earlier, she was merely a face among passengers, indistinguishable from the rest, sitting quietly in seat 1F. But recognition doesn't ask for introductions. It arrives like a spark, setting the air ablaze with respect and silent awe. The moment her call sign was spoken, the balance of authority reversed. The ones in uniform, commanding multi-million-dollar fighter jets, suddenly stood beneath her shadow. This wasn't the kind of authority that comes from rank or current command. It was the kind that lives in memory, in legacy, in the acknowledgement of deeds that transcend position. In that moment, she didn't need medals or a flight suit to remind them who she was. Her reputation did it for her. This sudden reversal reveals a deep truth about power and respect. It isn't always visible, and it isn't always loud. Sometimes, true authority walks quietly, waiting to be remembered. The F-22 pilots, trained to respond to chain of command and rigid protocol, reacted instinctively because their respect for her wasn't institutional. It was earned. Her call sign represented mastery, courage, and leadership that had once shaped the very standards they operated by. The way they straightened, the way their voices stilled, it was as if time had folded, bringing back the hierarchy of the skies where she once led, and they, as successors, were still her students. The salute wasn't to a civilian, it was to a legend who had returned, even if only by coincidence. There's a power in silence, in knowing you don't need to prove yourself anymore. She didn't speak, didn't need to. Her mere presence carried authority stronger than orders. That kind of respect cannot be commanded. It's given freely, born from the recognition of someone who has walked through fire and returned. The pilot's reaction wasn't fear or confusion. It was pure acknowledgement. They knew her name from stories, perhaps from the training manuals or the simulator drills that still carried maneuvers she once perfected. To them, she wasn't just a passenger. She was the foundation of their own excellence, the embodiment of what they aspired to become. And in military culture, that kind of reverence carries the weight of unspoken loyalty. In that single exchange, the story exposes how leadership and authority transcend environment. Whether in the cockpit or in the confines of an aircraft cabin, true leaders never lose their aura. They carry it in their posture, their gaze, their silence. For her, it wasn't about reclaiming status or recognition. It was about the unbreakable bond between those who fly. Once a commander, always a commander, no matter how many years pass or what seat you occupy. The pilot's reaction reminded her that respect, once earned through sacrifice, doesn't fade. It becomes eternal. It's passed down through generations, kept alive in rituals, in salutes, in the brief moments when the past and present meet. And in that instant, as the F-22s held formation outside and she sat quietly in 20F, the invisible chain of command realigned, not through protocol, but through reverence. She had not sought power, but power had found her again. Wrapped in the silent salute of those who knew exactly what her name meant. The quiet calm of her seat in 12F created a striking contrast to the sudden intensity that the recognition of her call sign unleashed. At first glance, the cabin seemed ordinary, almost mundane, filled with passengers absorbed in their own worlds, headphones in, books open, or eyes gazing out at a blanket of clouds. She blended perfectly into this setting, a picture of serenity. Yet, the world outside the airplane, and indeed the hidden dimension of her own past, was anything but ordinary. The sudden acknowledgement from the F-22 pilots transformed the atmosphere instantly, bridging two seemingly incompatible worlds, the controlled, peaceful environment of a civilian airliner and the high-stakes, adrenaline-charged world of elite military aviation. That juxtaposition was at the heart of the story's tension, creating a cinematic effect that made the ordinary extraordinary in an instant. This contrast highlights the power of perception. To a casual observer, she was just another traveler. But those who knew her call sign understood the depth of her experience and the magnitude of her presence. It's a reminder that the ordinary is often deceptive, and that life's most significant stories frequently unfold quietly, beneath the radar of casual notice. The cabin, with its soft hum of air conditioning and distant chatter, served as a neutral backdrop against which her true identity suddenly erupted. The recognition by the pilots was like a ripple moving through still water, subtle at first, then expanding until it reached everyone present. In that moment, her ordinary guise collided with the extraordinary, forcing everyone, even seasoned aviators, to recalibrate their understanding of who she was. The tension created by the civilian calm juxtaposed with military precision also underscores the human element in extraordinary scenarios. The pilots, trained to react quickly to threats and to respect hierarchy, suddenly found themselves navigating an unexpected situation. They were outside their normal operational context where every maneuver and every response was dictated by protocol and urgency. Instead, they faced a scenario where authority was acknowledged instinctively, without verbal commands, purely through recognition and shared history. This contrast between procedural discipline and instinctive reverence heightens the dramatic intensity of the story, emphasizing how true respect can transcend the rigid structures of command and control. Furthermore, this interplay between calm and tension amplifies the suspense for readers. The audience experiences the same duality, the familiar safety of a commercial cabin, contrasted against the lethal skill and legendary status of the person seated quietly among the passengers. It's a reminder that extraordinary events often lie hidden within ordinary settings, and that moments of revelation can transform perception in seconds. Her presence in 12F is a visual anchor grounding the story in a relatable, everyday environment while simultaneously preparing the audience for a shift into the extraordinary. This dynamic between normalcy and high-stakes recognition makes the narrative compelling, cinematic, and emotionally resonant. Ultimately, the contrast between civilian calm and military tension is more than just a storytelling device. It reflects the duality of her existence. She navigates two worlds effortlessly, one visible and mundane, the other powerful and secretive. The sudden recognition bridges these worlds, revealing the depth of her legacy, the respect she commands, and the silent authority she carries. By placing extraordinary capability within a commonplace setting, the story emphasizes that true greatness often exists quietly, waiting for the moment it must be acknowledged. In this juxtaposition, the ordinary and extraordinary collide, creating a tension that captivates, surprises, and ultimately commands attention. The recognition of her call sign carried with it an aura of mystery, one that immediately drew attention to the hidden depths of her past. For most passengers, she was just another traveler, quietly sitting in 12F, her presence unremarkable and almost invisible in the flow of ordinary activity. But for the F-22 pilots, those few syllables spoken over the radio, her call sign, opened a window into a life filled with extraordinary accomplishments, unspoken sacrifices, and experiences far beyond the reach of anyone seated around her. That recognition hinted at a story untold, a history of valor and expertise that had shaped the very pilots now flying in formation outside. It left both the crew and any onlooker with a profound curiosity. Who was she, and what feats had earned her such instant reverence? This sense of mystery is central to the tension in the narrative. The story does not immediately reveal her past, but allows it to exist as a presence felt in the reactions around her. Readers and other characters are placed in a position of intrigue, slowly piecing together the implications of her call sign. Mystery, in this sense, functions as both a hook and a lens. It makes the ordinary flight cabin charged with unseen significance, where the smallest details, from the way she sits to the subtle confidence in her posture, become hints of a life lived at a level of intensity most cannot imagine. It's in this contrast, the quiet present versus the storied past, that suspense thrives. Her mystery also serves to elevate the sense of respect and authority that accompanies her. The pilot's immediate recognition of her call sign implies that she was not just skilled, but legendary, someone whose actions had left a permanent mark on the military community. That she remains seated quietly among civilians emphasizes her humility, but it also deepens the intrigue. The most accomplished figures often reveal themselves indirectly, letting their reputation precede them. The narrative tension comes from the interplay of what is known and what is hidden, compelling others, both within the story and reading it, to pay closer attention, to question assumptions, and to anticipate the revelation of her full identity. The mystery also resonates with broader themes of legacy and memory. A call sign remembered and respected long after a pilot has stepped away from active service is a testament to the enduring impact of one's deeds. Even in civilian surroundings, her past cannot be fully concealed. It manifests subtly, commanding acknowledgement from those who understand it. This underscores the idea that certain legacies, particularly those forged under extraordinary circumstances, persist beyond immediate visibility. They echo in the reactions of others and in the cultural memory of an organization, leaving hints that draw curiosity and admiration in equal measure. Ultimately, the mystery of her past enhances both the suspense and the emotional weight of the story. It turns what could have been a simple passenger scenario into a narrative layered with tension, reverence, and intrigue. By hinting at extraordinary feats through the recognition of a call sign, the story transforms a quiet, ordinary setting into a stage for revelation, curiosity, and awe. Readers are left anticipating the deeper truth behind her presence, experiencing the power of hidden legacy, and witnessing how the mere whisper of a name can awaken respect, suspense, and profound fascination in everyone around her.